Hello, I'm Gary Jacobs, and welcome to another edition of Long Island Backstory. Our guest today is Cathy Sapeta. She is an educator and an activist. Cathy is the executive director of New York United for Kids. She advocates for local control of education and addresses what she feels is the unconstitutional aspect of Common Core. Politicians today seem to have backed off discussing about Common Core. I guess, with all the other things going on in the world, terrorism and the economy. It seemed to be in the news in the forefront for a while, but it seems to have lingered. Our politicians don't talk about it as much, and the news coverage really has lingered. And really, is there anything more important to us locally than the education of our kids? And although it's lingered in the news, it certainly hasn't lingered for the children who are dealing with this every day. And I'm sure if you talk with parents who have a problem with it and their children are coming home crying and they're feeling the pressure of it, they wouldn't tell you that it lingered. So this is something that I think we really need to keep in the forefront, and the battle has only begun. So Cathy, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much, Gary.
First of all, we're just going to we have a lot of stuff to go through because it's an issue that I'm passionate about. So just tell me first of all, what is Common Core in a minute or less? Or 2 minutes we'll give you for that one.
Oh, wow, 2 minutes. Well, thank you very much for the opportunity to be here and to share this story with New Yorkers. We are very fortunate that we have this media to tell the truth about what is happening in education to our public schools, to our teachers, in our classrooms, and to our children, and also to our parents. When I have been asked to define Common Core, I say it's a program where the taxpayers are the piggy banks and the children are the guinea pigs. And I say that because it came to us without any at all legislators involved, without any parents, without any educators, without any taxpayers, without any vote. And we got money from the federal government to implement a system where we're supposed to have standards-based education. In 2009, Governor Patterson signed us into 3 pieces of it. One of them was to adopt a set of standards that were rigorous and college and career ready. The other part of it was a new set of teaching tests to rate the teachers, the APPR. And the other was a longitudinal data system that not only tracks the children, but it also tracks the teachers.
Right.
And
which on the surface you would say, yeah, who would be against that?
Well,
if you just
on the
look
surface,
on the surface.
But as you know, the devil's in the
Of
details.
course, right. Well, that's why I think it's easy to get through, and we don't look at the details. And somebody would say, of course we want to have good teachers. Of course we want to have good students, right? So that's how something like this sort of, takes on a mind of its own. And like you said, then the details come out, which are pretty extensive. First, I'm going to go through a couple of things. We have so much to talk about, but one of the things you say is that it's unconstitutional. New York Constitution, the federal Constitution, and what is unconstitutional about this?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Someone asked me that question. She said, Mrs. Sapeta, according to you, is the Common Core unconstitutional? I said, well, actually, according to the United States Constitution, the Common Core state standards is unconstitutional, meaning that the federal government has no constitutional role whatsoever in education. And it begs the question, why are they involved?
Right.
Well, they make money available, boatloads of money.
Always follow the money.
Follow the money. And in order to get that money, the state has to apply and also go along with these mandates. Now,
so I guess they could argue, their argument would be, well, it's federal, but it's not ordered, but they're dangling that carrot where you have no choice. So yeah, maybe technically the courts, I don't know, but maybe they would say, well, it's not against the Constitution, but the reality is it really is being forced down our throats.
Absolutely, because they dropped off $700 million in the state of New York, and they also gave relief from No Child Left Behind, because No Child Left Behind, which is standards-based education, wanted every child to learn the same thing to the exact same time and tune. Now that's kind of ridiculous, because imagine you're a doctor and you were told that you have to have the same amount of healthiness for somebody, that they had to have the same body mass index and they had to have the same blood pressure.
Right.
Can you possibly do that?
Right.
It's ridiculous.
And do we want that?
Well,
I mean, I think we want people who are different. We want to, if somebody's good at art, we want to bring that out and have them be good at art. If somebody's good in math, you want to emphasize the math to that person. Science, you want to, I'd rather have somebody who is an expert. I mean, we all go to experts, right? I mean, it's the same thing. We go to an expert for brain surgery. We go to an expert in the legal field. This is what we want to develop. We don't want a bunch of people who are homogenized, which to me seems like that's what you're saying, that they're trying to homogenize our students.
Yes, workforce development, where you treat a child like it's a McDonald's hamburger. Right. So you have the federal government overarching and grabbing control. We've all known that children can learn. Every child can learn. Every
Right.
child learns differently. But who knows them the best?
Right.
The parents who can see and touch the child, also the teacher in the classroom.
Right.
That's where authentic and real learning happens. However, in this program, that's not what's happening, because now with this new rating system that they have, the teachers are being forced to teach to the test because they don't have time for anything else. So that's how they're getting rated.
Right, which is interesting because as we spoke earlier, and I said one of the things that bothers me about Common Core is the argument is always, well, we can't compete in a global market. Our children aren't going to college. They're not ready for college. And I say, well, first of all, I travel across the world, and guess what? The United States is we do the best. We have the best companies in the world. We invent more things than anybody else in the world. We
send men to the moon.
Right, yeah, I mean, we lead the way in so many things, so we must be doing something right. And I will agree that maybe some other countries where they go to school for 11 months or 12 months out of the year, or maybe Chinese students will test better, but they don't think outside the box like Americans do. I think the way we raise people, and like you said, teaching individually, allows people to think outside the box and be creative, and not just say, hey, I'm great at math and I'm great at science, but I'm a happy person that does what I like, and that's what I grow on it, and that's how we're successful. I think that's what builds America. I don't want America to be China. I don't want little robots that test well going around. When I go to China, you know what? People sit in front of a computer all day. They're geniuses. They're not happy.
Yeah. Well, when they actually looked at that study, it was a question of where are you taking your statistics from, and how do the other countries judge, and where are they pulling their information? In the United States, they're going across all socio and economic backgrounds.
Right. That's another
so
issue.
you're going to have a lower level in the poorer neighborhoods, right, and then a higher standard, higher level. And that'll be a challenge to weigh the numbers down. Right. So you can't. It's not really an apples to apples comparison.
You can't look at it. And I look on Long Island, and I see we have some. I'm not gonna, get everybody crazy with the school districts, but we have some amazing school districts.
Absolutely.
On Long Island, nobody's complaining that kids coming out of these school districts aren't prepared. And then we know we have some other school districts, and as you said, some of the lower socioeconomic areas. Nobody's going to argue that they need help.
Yes, I received a phone call from a gentleman from Long Island. He told me that on May 21st, there was a meeting up in Albany, and the lower performing schools were going to get together, and they were going to have a meeting to talk about what they were going to do as closing the schools. Now, in these high stakes tests, these kids who might just be newly arrived, by the way, I'm an ESL teacher, and I can't tell you—
English as a second language.
Yes, for English language learners, and I can't tell you the stories where I've seen children cry because they've been given these tests. They just got here and they're expected to perform.
And their numbers are going into the pool.
Exactly.
Poor teacher who's got that student.
And the teacher gets rated by
Right.
that child. Now, that to me is not a system that's fair whatsoever. So you're already going into judging, and you're also putting the position of having the child at risk, because now they have to find another school to go to. They have to go into mediation. I know you just had a wonderful guest talk about art. I was in upstate New York, and because of all the testing that goes on, they no longer have French. I mean, they're right on the Canadian border. That was pulled out from them. That's very useful where they are. And then also their music programs and their sports programs were being pulled out because they needed more time for these tests.
And I've read that also some of the tests aren't, the time isn't allocated naturally, where there's something that you would never probably use in life, but we teach that they spend an extraordinary amount of time on that, whereas something that's very important, we don't spend the right amount of time on because it's not in the tests.
Yeah, in this standards-based education, you're creating a workforce. Everybody's coming out like a McDonald's hamburger. That's what they're trying to do. It never will work.
Never.
It's structurally, fundamentally flawed, and I say you have to get rid of the whole thing. You have to get rid of the data mining. You have to get rid of the teacher rating system, and this rigorous college and career ready standards. I had 8 nephews, and I helped raise every one of those nephews, and they're all different. And even the twins, they're fraternal twins, they're even different. Right. Now, what does college and career ready mean?
Right. And what college?
And what college? If I want to become an aeronautics person, if I want to fly to the moon, if I want to,
be an artist, a musician.
Exactly. That's going to mandate
different.
and tell me what I have to study.
Right.
You can't force someone into a career. However, in this system, by the grade of 8th grade, they're going to have to figure out what they want to be when they grow up.
Right.
Did you know what you wanted to be when you grew up?
I still don't know what I want to be, but it changes. As we grow up, but again, that's letting people, and I think that's going to create a generation of children who aren't happy with their careers.
Well,
because they're not doing what they love, they're doing what they were told they love, or they have to do.
Yeah, one of the biggest challenges I find is that it's developmentally inappropriate, especially in the early grades. So what they're trying to do is things that you would normally learn at a higher grade level, they've flipped it over. It's developmentally inappropriate. They're expecting the children to think critically. They don't have the ability to do that. Right. If you give a child a watch and say, you know what, Johnny, you come home when the little hand is on 5 and the big hand is on 12. Now, you do that for 2 weeks, and the kid always knows, oh, okay, I'm going to come home and eat dinner at 5 o'clock. Right. But what happens when that big hand stops at 10 minutes of 5? The kid's not going to know. The kid's never going to come home. Right. They don't have the ability to think in that abstract way. They're concrete. So the kids aren't getting things more rigorous or more difficult. It's actually developmentally inappropriate. Mary Calamia, who's a clinical psychologist, social worker here out in Long Island, she actually testified out here in Long Island about how the increase in stress were causing children to cut themselves, an increase of bedwetting. And I've traveled throughout all 62 counties, and I've seen other stories. And the kids, they don't have anywhere else to go to. They're looking up to adults. So what do? They turn inward and they start to say, I'm stupid. I can't do this.
That's what I'm seeing. A lot of people say that if they can't test well, I mean, if you're taking a test, that's just, you
Could you sit for 3 hours for a standardized test?
And then you come home, you didn't do well on it, and you feel stupid.
Well, how about the rating? You're given a 1, 2, or 3, and you don't get the results right away. One of my friends, she's a mom of 7 in Dutchess County. She said, I don't know what this means. I used to get a paper that had some meaning. It. And then what do you do with that? You can actually help the child.
Teach towards it.
In this system, there's nothing that you can do to help the child.
It's not fair to the teachers. I mean, a lot of people say, well, just the teachers' unions are against this because the teachers don't want to get rating. But I got to tell you, if you have a classroom of kids who aren't performing well, I don't want them in my class. If I'm a teacher who's going to be rated on it, you're going to do whatever you can. And I could see teachers saying, you know what, they're a behavioral problem. Get them out of my class because I don't want it to look like I'm a bad teacher, where if it didn't do that, they would say, hey, I'm going to work with this kid, because most people get into teaching because they want to help people.
Absolutely.
But this seems
for the love of children.
Right. This is counterintuitive that, and maybe labeling people as learning disabled so they can get out of that pool. Maybe just start, giving them different labels.
What happens in the system is that, they say, oh, we need high standards. Well, what happens in this system is that the standard, the cut score, is going to go down because you have to meet the children in the school, in that classroom. And the kids at the top are called hidden failures. I just met a parent yesterday.
What do you mean by that?
They're have an exceptional learning ability and they have a higher IQ. Okay. So they're going to get bored because the teacher's looking to get all the rest of the kids up to that level.
And they're okay with them because they're already testing well. So
but is that fair to that child that they get, no child gets ahead, right? And then the kids at the bottom, statistics show that those children get washed away completely. So it's really sorting children. It's not teaching children.
Right. What is, I know this year there was a big push, and I only know on Long Island because this is where I am, for people to opt out of the testing. And I said to myself, first of all, it's a good thing because you don't have to have your kid deal with it, the testing that's upsetting so many people. But what is that? Did you think that's a good way to fight back? People say, what do I do to fight back? I think it got attention.
Absolutely. I'm so proud of the men and the women that led this movement. We are here in New York at the center of this opt-out movement. There's many organizations out on Long Island and across the United States now that have taken on this idea to opt out of the test for grades 3 through 8, especially for English language arts and math. And in 2014, we had about 64,000 parents who opted their children out of these high-risk, high-stakes tests. And then last time around, we had about 200,000, and that was only 90% of the schools had actually reported. And it was interesting because during the governor's race, the candidate who was running had made an announcement that he opted his children out. And then I knew that many other people saw that he did it, so they decided to do it. But the men and women out in Long Island have actually led that movement. We do hope that the numbers will actually double again, and we're going to start that earlier this year.
Right, so it is working.
It
You're
absolutely
getting
will work, getting a
there.
message out there.
The politicians, a lot of them will say, listen, the problem isn't with Common Core, it's the implementation of it. We needed to teach the teachers sooner, we need to start this at a younger age, but the program itself is good. Address that.
Common Core,
I'm sure you've heard it,
is riddled with marketing myths and what we call conversational poppycock. And so is some of the rhetoric that we hear from our politicians. Not one state senator who ran to stop Common Core did anything. There was a bill that Assemblyman Al Graf had sponsored for the full repeal of the unconstitutional Common Core. There's several reasons why we need to get rid of it, but we absolutely need to get rid of it sooner than later. There was no Senate companion to that. Not one person.
Well, I guess they get pressure from the governor. And in our area, we happen to be filming is Senator Flanagan, and he was a big proponent of Common Core.
Well, this is an experiment.
So,
Bill Gates had said, Bill Gates is a principal funder of the Common Core, and he was interviewed in an hour in Harvard University. And when he was asked about it, he said, well, it'll take about 10 years to see if this, quote, education stuff
I don't want my kids being an experiment.
Works. But his kids aren't in this school. Our president of our country, his kids aren't in this school, and Governor Cuomo also pulled his children out of these Common Core schools. And we recommend the same thing. Pull your kids out of these Common Core schools and refuse the test. We advocate for local control. We believe in public education, but this is government education.
Right. So who pushed for Common Core? Was it the states who were saying, hey, we need to do something better? Was it the federal government jamming it down our throats? As I said, I mentioned Senator Flanagan. It seemed like he was pushing for us to get Common Core. Is that true, or that my perception is wrong, and it's the federal government who's jamming it down its throat?
I can't speak for Senator Flanagan, but we could possibly call this Flanagan's folly. This was actually forced by a carrot and stick approach, and $700 million was given to the state of New York, and Governor Patterson had signed off in 2009 and said, okay, I'll take this. But there are three components, as I mentioned before: the new teacher rating system, the APPR, this longitudinal data system that not only tracks the children, but it also puts a tracker number on the teacher, and also the Common Core State Standard Initiatives, college and career ready, rigorous things. They're also given relief of the mandate, No Child Left Behind, which came before this. If you didn't get 100% proficiency, there were a lot of penalties that came. But by signing on to the Race to the Top that came from the federal government and was marketed with two quasi-governmental agencies and fed with the funding of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, it's all up on their website, it was actually forced on us.
So it's way more than $700 million, because it's the $700 million they're giving plus the mandate relief that they're not causing. So you're talking a lot of money.
We have no feasibility study. I think California came the closest to how much this will actually cost taxpayers. I certainly encourage...
So in the long run, you're saying, your argument is, if we drop Common Core and don't take the money, you still think we're ahead of the game financially, the taxpayer?
Yes, because there is a lot of technology that is required to do these standardized tests, where they're computer adaptive tests. So what does that mean? Do you remember on the ballot in November 2014, we had the Smart Bond?
Okay, right, to get the money to buy all the iPads.
Exactly. Who's going to benefit from that? It's technology. And let's see, is it Microsoft that the products are using? So you need new networks, you need new hardware and software, you need the training, and then you need to go back and the network repair. There's a lot of money in there. And then also the new workbooks that are required.
New training.
And the training for the teachers. You also have remediation when they can set the cut score and they can can lower it or set wherever they want, and they have to fail those children, who's going to pay for all that? Right. We don't know what this is yet.
Right.
So that's like buyer beware, and let's stop this thing now, because we don't need to pay any more taxes in the state of New York.
So Cathy, why do you think the federal government is pushing for Common Core? Is it really that they think that our students aren't doing well, or is it because of the money? Because it seems like everything we're talking about, everything's money. It comes down to everybody's profiting from this.
Yeah, well, I really think the question that we need to answer is, what do we do to help our children? Because they don't get the time back. This is an experiment.
Gone. Right.
It's gone. And
what do we do if we come back in 10 years and go, that didn't work? Our students are doing no better in life than they were. They're depressed.
Right. Well, with the longitudinal data system, it gives the federal government an opportunity to track the labor force as well. The way that the law is written, if you look into the details, and it's all available, they'll be able to share that information. So they'll be able to track the child from cradle to grave. And the documents are available up on our website as far as the information that they're collecting it, and what do they want to do with it. They want to track you. Is that something that you want Big Brother watching you and knowing all that data? And
that sort of leads into my next question, which was, I read somewhere that one of the proponents for Common Core said, well, this was something that was internationally put together, and it's a worldwide initiative, and it's been approved by all the other countries, and we're just one of those other countries, so we need to be part of that. It makes sense. Is that true?
Well, you'd have to look into any documents that might be available on that. I could tell you that here in the United States and locally, we really need to focus on what's best for our child and what's best for the teacher and what's best for the public school. We recommend that you go to your county. I know Mike Janis with our association, he went to the Suffolk County legislators, and he talked about the rules of law that were broken in Common Core. Right. And oh, by the way, teachers are actually expected to take a pledge to the oath. I actually brought a copy of that, and you can read it.
And this will be on your website.
Yeah, this is up on the website too. It's too small to read there.
Okay, which we'll put the website on the bottom of the screen.
Yeah.
So, and what is this? So people can look for this?
Yeah, so that would be listed on the county resolution campaign.
Okay.
We've had more than 10% of the counties in New York State push back. They're recognizing that this Common Core was pushed upon us. They don't have to even debate whether or not it's good or the standards are good or the teacher rating system. Just look at the rules of law. Right. Who agreed to this?
Right.
Big challenge that we have is still not enough people know about it. So I really appreciate this opportunity to be here to communicate to people. Go to the website, repurpose the articles. If you're already an expert in the issue, share with other people. We will be able to push back. There's a lot of people pushing back. Here's a bookmark that we came up with, and these have the top 4 reasons why Common Core should be stopped, especially the fact that it hurts children, it's developmentally inappropriate, and it also is very hurtful to the taxpayer's wallet.
Right. Now, since this is Common Core is geared towards testing. I mean, everything seems to be around testing, which, first of all, testing is money. Right? Mm-hmm. You got to analyze it. But what about students who don't test well? I know we always say, well, my son is smart or my daughter's smart, but he doesn't test well. And we know that now that really is true. Some students don't test well, but then they end up being some of the smartest people and most successful people in our society. What do you have to say about the fact that Common Core is geared, or am I correct that it's geared to everything is based on testing?
There's so much testing. There's too much testing, and the questions that are being asked, they're inappropriate. They're different grade levels. There was a whole article that Carol Burris had published, Valerie Strauss, in one of the newspapers, and she goes through all the details about how it was supposed to be a 6th grade reading level, but it went up to an 8th grade reading level.
One of the things when I talk to people, they say, well, you know what, I don't know if Common Core is the answer, but our education system is broken. So if not Common Core, what? My question to you, Cathy, is our education system broken, or was it broken?
Well, of course, with a No Child Left Behind, which mandated that you had to have a level of proficiency where everybody had the same kind of outcome, that was totally ridiculous. And then what was happening is that when the kids got to college, we realized that they didn't have the skills that they needed to be for the next workforce. But that's because there were no audits. The audit system came after the child got out of this system, No Child Left Behind. So then they find out what they're deficient in. So what do we need to do now? I know that when the governor race happened, we had people coming up with different, what was it? They went back to the law standards. They were law standards of New York, and they were about to be published. So that's a perfect way. So you really have to look at what do you need for your child, what do you need for your teacher, what do you need to be in that classroom to be the best.
So you're not saying that our system was perfect. You're agreeing that we do need to change.
Absolutely.
But you're saying it should be locally.
I advocate
let New York
for
change it.
reform and for having each child to be enlightened and to learn and to be their personal best, to reach for the stars. However, in the Common Core system, it's closing doors and it's lowering ceilings, and our children who need the leg up the most in a lower socioeconomic scale, they need more help, but their schools are into the failing schools, and they're being, doing all these tests, and too much of it.
Well, to me, that shows that you're being fair, because a lot of people will say, "Oh, everyone's just against change. The teachers want to keep it the same. The parents." You're not saying that we don't need change. You're
not
saying
at
that it
all.
needs to be smart change.
Yeah, smart change. You have to have teachers involved. I mean, this is the career.
How do you not have teachers involved?
Well, this system had no teachers involved.
Right. I mean, we're running out of time, but I mean, one of the things I remember reading, and I want to leave the show without doing it, is some of the things that they were teaching. They were even teaching, getting away from teaching American exceptionalism. Is that true?
Well, yeah. If you look at the new Advanced Placement U.S. History and do a careful analysis, you will find that it's loaded with political issues.
Which is scary coming from the federal government.
Yeah.
That's really what we don't want.
Right. Well, you have to look at David Coleman. He's the architect of the Common Core, but he's also the head of the College Board, and the College Board is responsible for the Advanced Placement U.S. History. We also recommend, actually there's American Principles Project, and they're looking to push back on that too. You can go to their website and sign their petition.
Great. What can people do who want to get involved? Parents are watching this, and we're going to put a two-part to that also. If somebody doesn't have kids in school, they've graduated, and they're out of school already, should they give a damn about Common Core?
Absolutely, because what's happening in our schools and in our classrooms is going to affect our next generation. If you're on teaching things about the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, what it means to be a good citizen, that's going to get put into what the next generation of the children are like and what our next country will be. As far as getting in touch with us, I would say go to our website, ask us questions. It's www.nyunited4kids.com. Or email.
Get involved.
Absolutely, get involved locally, get involved in your schools. If you're not sure what to do, you contact us. But there are a lot of community groups throughout New York State, and we absolutely can get rid of this. And you also want to call up your state senator, and you also want to call up your assemblyman. If they sponsored the full repeal bill, you want to thank them, and you want to encourage the state senators to get on the board. And if they need help, throughout New York State, we have at least 5 to 10 regional experts who can come in on these meetings. It's really important.
Cathy Sapeta
Thank you
from
so
New York
much.
United for Kids. Thanks so much for coming
you.
out and for fighting to save our children and make sure that they have a happy life and they learn. I'm Gary Jacobs, and thank you for joining us at Long Island Backstory.